Marine Colonel Brad Brennan stood motionless during the military ceremony, each medal upon his chest representing blood spilled and lives saved. His steel-gray eyes swept across the assembled crowd, analyzing potential threats, a habit ingrained through multiple combat tours. At 42, his presence commanded the attention of every person in the room, from the youngest recruit to the most seasoned officers. For exceptional leadership in a classified operation resulting in the successful rescue of 3 American aid workers and the disruption of a major arms trafficking network, Colonel Bradford James Brennan is hereby awarded. The base commander's voice carried across the ceremonial hall. In the front row, Marina Brennan maintained her practiced smile, her manicured nails digging into her palms. She watched as her husband accepted yet another commendation, another piece of metal that would distance him further from her. At 35, she had mastered the art of appearing proud while suppressing the bitterness that threatened to crack her carefully constructed facade. The operation was a team effort, sir. Brad's voice carried the weight of authority as he addressed the commander. Lieutenant Peter White gave his life to ensure its success. The credit belongs to him and the men who followed him into hell. Holly White, Peter's widow, stood near the stage, her black dress a stark reminder of the price military families paid. Her eyes met Brad's for a moment, and he saw in them the same haunted look he faced in the mirror each morning, the look of someone who had lost too much. After the ceremony, Captain Rachel Schwartz approached Brad with a stack of files. "We must discuss the intelligence gathered from the Syrian operation. There are certain irregularities in the arms dealer profiles." "Not now, Rachel." Brad's voice was hushed yet resolute. "Tonight is for the families." Marina observed the exchange from across the room, noting how her husband's posture shifted whenever he spoke with his intelligence officer. There was an ease between them, a professional intimacy forged through shared dangers and secrets that she felt she could never penetrate. "Mrs. Brennan?" A gentle voice broke through her reflections. Warren Carey stood beside her, his tailored suit and youthful smile offering a stark contrast to the uniformed officers surrounding them. "I couldn't help but notice you seemed distant during the ceremony." Marina's practiced smile wavered for an instant. "Mr. Carey, I didn't expect to see you here. Please, call me Warren. My company's veteran employment program works closely with the base. Supporting military families is our foremost priority." His hand brushed against hers as he offered a glass of champagne, the fleeting touch sending an electric current through her. Across the room, Brad was encircled by junior officers, all eager to hear sanitized accounts of his combat experiences. Marina recognized his command voice, the tone he adopted to uphold the image expected of a Marine Corps colonel. 15 years, Marina murmured, taking a sip of champagne. "Excuse me." Warren leaned in closer, his cologne a welcome departure from the military atmosphere. 15 years of marriage, and I still feel as though I'm competing with the Corps for my husband's attention." The words escaped before she could restrain them. Warren's sympathetic smile made her chest tighten. "I was married to a career officer myself. I understand precisely what you mean. Have you considered joining our military spouse support group? We meet every Thursday." Before Marina could reply, Brad appeared at her side, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. "Warren," he acknowledged, his tone even but his eyes scrutinizing. "Your company." A bid was submitted for the new training simulator contract. "Colonel Brennan, your reputation precedes you." The Syrian operation was masterfully executed. Warren maintained his pleasant demeanor, but Marina felt the tension between the men. With significant casualties, Brad's voice carried an edge. "If you'll excuse us, my wife and I have dinner plans." Later that night, in their Virginia home, Marina sat at her vanity removing her makeup while Brad reviewed mission reports in his study. The silence between them stretched like a chasm. Peter's widow seemed to be holding up well, Marina ventured, entering his study. Brad didn't look up from his files. "Holly's stronger than most. She understands the sacrifice. Like I'm supposed to understand." The words came out sharper than intended. Brad finally met her gaze, his eyes hard. "Marina, we've discussed this. My position, your position requires secrecy. Your position demands sacrifice. Your position has become our marriage." Marina's voice cracked. "I lost our baby while you were deployed, Brad. For the 3rd time. I needed my husband, not a commanding officer sending condolences through official channels." Those missions save lives. Brad's voice remained steady, controlled. American lives. Would you have preferred I abandon my men in the field? Marina laughed, a hollow sound. There will always be another mission, another crisis, another reason why the great Colonel Brennan can't be just a husband. She turned to leave, but Brad's voice stopped her. I have another deployment coming up. For months. Classified location. Marina didn't turn around. She couldn't bear to see the detachment in his eyes. Of course you do. In their bedroom, Marina's phone lit up with a message from Warren. Thursday, 2 p.m., Base Community Center. Sometimes talking helps. She stared at the message for a long moment before typing, I'll be there. The next morning, Captain Rachel Schwartz watched Marina leave the base gym, noting the woman's determined stride and rigid posture. Having served alongside Brad for a considerable time, Rachel was well acquainted with the subtle indicators of a marriage under duress. Permission to speak freely, sir, she said as she stepped into Brad's office, where he was engrossed in reviewing security protocols. Granted, Brad replied without lifting his gaze from his computer screen. Marina is struggling. The grief of another lost pregnancy, compounded by your frequent deployments. It's taking a heavy toll on her. Brad's fingers paused over the keyboard. My marriage is not a matter for military discussion, Captain. With all due respect, sir, in our line of work, the personal and professional are inextricably linked. We have witnessed it time and again, when relationships begin to fracture under the strain. That's enough. Brad's tone was final, leaving no room for further debate. Focus on the intelligence gaps in the Ian operation. There are inconsistencies with those arms dealers that do not align. Rachel hesitated briefly before turning to leave. Yes, sir. And, sir, Warren KY was inquiring about our communication protocols during the ceremony. He appeared unusually interested in our security measures. Brad's expression hardened. Keep a close watch on him. Carey Defense Solutions has been particularly aggressive in pursuing military contracts recently. I want to understand the reason behind it. As Rachel departed, Brad accessed Warren KY's file on his secure terminal. The man's background was impeccably clean, almost suspiciously so. His company had experienced rapid growth over the past year, securing contracts that should have been beyond the reach of a relatively new entrant in the defense industry. That evening, in their kitchen, Marina prepared dinner while scrolling through her social media feed. Image after image depicted happy military families and proud spouses supporting their service members, all meticulously filtered and staged. Her own profile projected the same carefully curated image, the perfect military wife, steadfastly supporting her decorated husband. None of it revealed the profound emptiness that consumed her from within. She paused on a photograph from 3 years ago, Brad holding her in his arms at a military ball, both of them smiling radiantly. It was taken just 2 weeks before her second miscarriage, and 2 weeks before Brad deployed to an undisclosed location, leaving her to face the aftermath alone. The sound of Brad's car alone in the driveway made her quickly wipe away her tears. Colonel Brennan's wife did not cry. Colonel Brennan's wife was strong, supportive, and understanding. Colonel Brennan's wife was a role she had played for so long that she sometimes forgot who Marina truly was. But Warren had seen through the facade. In their brief interaction, he had recognized something in her that she thought she had hidden away. As she set the table for another silent dinner with her husband, Marina made her decision. Thursday could not come soon enough. Chapter 2. The Descent. The military spouse support group met in a bright room at the base community center, the forced cheerfulness of motivational posters contrasting with the tired eyes of the attendees. Marina sat in the back, watching Warren Carey guide the discussion with practiced ease. Separation anxiety, depression, feelings of isolation. These are all normal responses to the military lifestyle. Warren's voice carried just the right mix of authority and empathy. The key is finding healthy ways to cope. Marina observed how other spouses leaned toward him when he spoke, drawn to his understanding smile and gentle demeanor. When their eyes met across the room, she felt seen in a way she had not experienced in years. After the session, Warren approached her chair. Coffee. There's a place just off base that makes an excellent espresso. The cafe was quiet, tucked away from the main streets where they might encounter other military personnel. Marina wrapped her hands around her cup, absorbing its warmth. Brad was deployed during all 3 miscarriages, she found herself saying. The first time, I convinced myself it was just bad timing. By the third, she trailed off. Warren reached across the table, his hand covering hers. You don't have to justify your feelings, Marina. The military demands everything from service members and expects their spouses to accept the leftovers. Brad says I knew what I had committed to when I married him. Did you know? Did you truly understand that you would confront the loss of your children alone? Did you realize your husband would place classified operations above your sorrow? Warren's tone remained gentle, yet his words struck deep. Marina withdrew her hand, suddenly conscious of their public surroundings. I should go, Marina said. Marina, Warren called as she stood. Same time next week. Sometimes, having someone to talk to makes all the difference. The weekly coffee meetings became her sanctuary. Warren listened without judgment and offered comfort without demands. He shared stories of his own failed marriage to a career officer, how the military had consumed their relationship until nothing remained. One rainy afternoon, their hands touched while reaching for the check. Neither pulled away. The following week, coffee became lunch at an upscale restaurant in Alexandria, far from prying military eyes. You're different today, Warren observed, studying her across the table. Lighter. Marina smiled, the expression genuine for once. I feel lighter. Being here. Being able to just be Marina, instead of Colonel Brennan's wife. Their first kiss happened in the restaurant parking lot, hidden by the tinted windows of Warren's luxury SUV. It was gentle, questioning, nothing like Brad's calculated displays of affection at military functions. The lies came easily after that. Therapy sessions that ran long, shopping trips with friends, base spouse meetings. Brad, consumed by preparations for his upcoming deployment, barely noticed her absences. Dana, Marina's closest friend on base, covered for her without asking questions. Girls' night at my place became their code for Marina's afternoons with Warren. I don't know what's changed, Dana commented during an actual lunch together, but you seem happier lately. Less tense. Marina stirred her salad, guilt warring with satisfaction. Sometimes we find support in unexpected places. The first time they met at a hotel, Marina, for an hour, she remained seated in her car, debating whether to enter Warren's home. He waited patiently, understanding her hesitation and never pressing the matter. We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with, he assured her when she finally stepped into the room. We can just talk. But talking soon led to touching, and touching led to more. In Warren's arms, Marina felt desired, appreciated, and alive in ways she had forgotten were possible. Between their meetings, Warren sustained their connection through text messages and phone calls. He inquired about her day, remembered details she had mentioned in passing, and showed genuine interest in her thoughts and feelings. All the small attentions that Brad had ceased providing years ago. Captain Rachel Schwartz observed the change in Marina's demeanor during base functions. The colonel's wife appeared more relaxed, yet somehow more guarded. Rachel's intelligence training flagged these behavioral shifts, but her loyalty to Brad created an internal conflict. Mrs. Brennan, Rachel approached Marina at a base fundraiser. How are you holding up with the colonel's deployment coming up? Fine, thank you, Marina replied, her smile practiced and perfect. The spouse support group has been helpful. Rachel nodded, noting how Marina's hand tightened around her wine glass at the mention of the group. Warren Carey runs that program, doesn't he? He seems very invested in military families. He understands what we go through. Marina's defense was quick, perhaps too quick. Not everyone does. Meanwhile, Warren's interest in base activities grew more focused. During support group sessions, he encouraged spouses to share their struggles with deployment schedules, unit movements, and security protocols. Each piece of information, seemingly innocent in isolation, contributed to a larger picture. My husband's unit is preparing for something big, Melody Allen, Sergeant Justin Allen's wife, confided during one session. Extra training, restricted communications, you know how it is. Warren nodded sympathetically while making mental notes. Mental notes. It is difficult when they cannot share anything with us. It makes one feel shut out of their lives. After the meetings, he compiled the information gathered, deployment patterns, security rotation schedules, communication protocols. His company's bid for the B's new security contract would benefit greatly from such insider knowledge. Meanwhile, Brad immersed himself in training his new team. Sergeant Justin Allen showed particular promise, reminding Brad of his own early days in the Corps. Your wife seems to be doing better, Justin mentioned during a training break. Melody says she's been more involved with the spouse group lately. Brad grunted noncommittally. Marina had always been good at adapting. The comment might have struck him differently had he not been focused on the intelligence reports crossing his desk. Something about the Syrian arms dealer network nagged at him. Connections that seemed too convenient. Intelligence that arrived too easily. In their bedroom, Marina listened to Brad's breathing as he slept, his body tense even in rest. She thought about the hotel key card hidden in her purse, about Warren's gentle touch and understanding words. The guilt was there, but it was overshadowed by a sense of justice. Hadn't Brad's dedication to the Corps been its own form of betrayal? Her phone buzzed softly, Warren asking if she was awake. She typed back a simple yes, knowing it would lead to hours of intimate conversation while her husband slept beside her, unaware of the distance growing between them. Chapter 3. The Breaking Point Staff Sergeant Evan Mack hunched over his computer terminal in the base's cybersecurity center, his eyes narrowing at the patterns emerging on his screen. Another attempted breach of the communication systems, this one more sophisticated than the last. Sir, he called out to Brad, who was passing through on his daily security rounds, you need to see this. Brad leaned over Mack's shoulder, his expression hardening as he studied the data. He absorbed the information. How long has this been happening? The first attempt started 3 months ago. They're getting more aggressive. The IP address is traced back to various locations, but there's something familiar about the attack patterns. Mack pulled up another screen. And, sir, some of these attempts originate from within the base network. Brad's jaw tightened. Cross-reference the timestamps with base personnel logs. I want to know who had access during these attempts. I already did, sir. That's where it gets interesting. Mack lowered his voice. Several attempts coincide with scheduled maintenance by Carry Defense Solutions. Before Brad could respond, his phone vibrated with a message from Marina. We need to talk about Brussels. The NATO position had been a point of contention for weeks. 3 years in Belgium offered stability, prestige, and, most importantly to Brad, access to intelligence networks tracking international arms dealers. To Marina, it meant 3 more years of being a military wife in a foreign country, further from family and friends. That evening, Brad found Marina in their kitchen, her posture rigid as she prepared dinner. You wanted to talk about Brussels? No, Brad. You wanted to talk about Brussels. You've already decided we're going, haven't you? Marina didn't turn from the stove. Just like you decided on this deployment without discussing it with me. This isn't about the deployment. Brad moved closer, noting how she tensed at his approach. NATO needs experienced commanders who understand modern warfare. The position comes with, I don't care what it comes with. Marina spun to face him, her voice rising. I've spent 15 years following your career, losing our babies while you were saving the world, pretending to be the perfect military wife. I can't do Belgium. I won't. Marina, no. She slammed her hand on the counter. You don't get to use that tone with me. I'm not one of your Marines to be commanded. I'm supposed to be your wife, but I don't. Do you even know who we are to each other anymore? Brad studied her with the same intensity he once reserved for analyzing enemy positions. What's really going on, Marina? You've been different lately. Marina laughed bitterly. Different? You're actually noticing something about me. That's new. Is this about the support group? Brad's question carried a sharp edge. Warren's group. Marina's hand trembled as she gripped the counter. Don't you dare make this about him. This is about us. About 15 years of me being alone in this marriage. You knew who I was when you married me. Brad's voice remained controlled and measured. A Marine puts duty first. Duty? Marina's voice cracked. Was it duty that kept you from being there when I lost our children? Was it duty that made you miss every anniversary for the past 3 years? She moved toward the door. I need some air. Marina. Brad's command voice stopped her. This conversation isn't finished. She turned, her eyes cold. Yes, it is. Just like our marriage. As Marina drove away, her phone buzzed with a message from Warren. Bad night? I'm here if you need me. In his office, Santos Stanton reviewed the dossier Warren had provided on Colonel Brad Brennan. The colonel's combat record was impressive. Multiple tours, specialized training, countless classified operations. Santos had run enough black ops to recognize a formidable opponent. The wife wants him gone, Warren explained, sitting across from Santos in a private room at an upscale DC restaurant. But it needs to look like a robbery gone wrong. Santos raised an eyebrow. A man like Brennan won't go down easy. My team will need detailed intel on his routines, security systems, everything. Already handled, Warren replied, pulling out a tablet. Marina's provided full access to their home layout, and I have other sources on base feeding me his schedule. Carlos Ramirez, sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. What about base security response time? Warren smiled. My company's handling the security. A new security contract installation was underway, creating a window during which the systems would be in transition. The Ham twins, Dean and Dan, exchanged knowing glances. Electronic countermeasures, one of them remarked. You'll have everything you need, Warren assured them. Marina will be out with friends. Dana Best will provide her alibi. Clean, simple, and untraceable. Back at the base, Captain Rachel Schwartz reviewed the security breach data with growing concern. The pattern was too precise, too targeted. She pulled up Warren Carr's company records, noting the recent contracts they had secured, all involving base security and communications. Sir, she caught Brad after a training session. We need to discuss the Syrian operation. Something's not adding up with those arms dealers. Brad wiped sweat from his face. What have you found? The intel we received. It was too perfect, like someone wanted us to find that specific network, Rachel explained, handing him a file. And now I'm seeing similar patterns in these security breaches. Brad's expression darkened as he read. Keep digging, but keep it quiet. If there's a leak, Colonel Staff Sergeant Mack hurried over. Sir, you need to see this. Another breach attempt, but this time we traced it. Not here. Brad cut him off, noting several contractors working nearby. My office, both of you. 10 minutes. Marina sat in her car outside Dana Best's house, Warren's words echoing in her mind. Santos Stanton. The name carried a weight of finality. One decision, one word from her, and everything would change. Her phone lit up with a text from Brad. We need to talk. Really talk. About everything. For a moment, her finger hovered over the reply button. Then another message appeared. This one from Warren. Everything's arranged. Just say the word. Marina took a deep breath and typed her response to Warren. Do it. In Brad's office, Rachel spread out the intelligence reports. The arms dealers in Syria, the security breaches, Carry Defense Solutions, they're all connected. But we need more time to prove it. Brad's phone buzzed with Marina's message. Staying at Dana's tonight. Don't wait up. He stared at the message. Years of combat instinct screaming that something was wrong, very wrong. Sir, Max's voice pulled him back. What are your orders? Brad looked at the evidence before him, his tactical mind already forming connections. Lock down all sensitive data. Activate Protocol Echo. And get me everything you have on Warren K's movements for the past 6 months. Yes, sir. Rachel paused at the door. And Marina, sir? Should we? My wife is not your concern, Captain. Brad's voice carried a dangerous edge. Focus on the mission. As night fell over the base, pieces moved into position. Santos briefed his team. Warren made final arrangements. And Marina sat in Dana's guest room, staring at her wedding ring. The stage was set. Act One's facade was about to shatter, but not in the way anyone had planned. Brad sat in his study, satellite photos of Syrian weapons caches spread across his desk, but his eyes were fixed on a single surveillance photo taken earlier that day, his wife leaving a hotel with Warren KY. The colonel's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held the cold calculation of a predator preparing to strike. The man who had led troops through the worst combat zones on Earth, who had never lost a tactical engagement, who had built his reputation on being 3 steps ahead of his enemies, began to plan. Marina had no idea that in choosing to end her marriage, she had set in motion events that would expose a conspiracy far beyond a simple affair. The perfect facade of their lives was about to crumble, and with it, the carefully constructed web of lies that had entangled them all. Chapter 4. Best laid plans. Brad Brennan sat in his study at 0200 hours, the glow of his computer screen illuminating stacks of intelligence reports. His mind processed the data with machine-like efficiency, connecting fragments of information into a clear picture. In the shadowy network of Syrian arms dealers, security breaches were becoming increasingly common. Warren Carr's sudden ascent in the defense contracting world had not gone unnoticed, The patterns were there for those trained to see them. His phone buzzed with a text from Sergeant Cooper. Security system upgrade complete. Silent protocol active. Brad's response was brief. Acknowledged. The new security system had been Cooper's suggestion after Brad confided his suspicions. Trust your instincts, sir, Cooper had advised. They've kept us alive this long. A soft creak from outside drew Brad's attention. Years of combat had honed his senses. The sound was wrong for Marina returning home. He reached beneath his desk, his fingers wrapping around cold steel. In the darkness outside, Santos Stanton directed his team with hand signals. Carlos Ramirez took point, moving toward the back entrance. The Ham twins, Dean and Dan, monitored their electronic warfare equipment, designed to bypass standard security systems. All clear, Dean's voice whispered through their encrypted comms. Security system showing normal. Santos allowed himself a small smile. Warren's intelligence had been precise. The colonel would be sleeping upstairs, unaware of the intruders about to enter his home. Marina's description of his habits had painted him as a creature of routine, despite his combat experience. Remember, Santos murmured, make it look messy. A robbery gone wrong. Carlos reached the back door, his lock-picking tools silent and efficient. The door opened without resistance. Their first warning sign, had they recognized it. Brad watched through hidden cameras as 4 figures entered his home. His face showed no emotion as he activated a preset command on his phone. Protocol Echo initiated. In the base security center, Sergeant Cooper's screen lit up with the alert. He immediately notified the quick reaction force while initiating the secondary protocols Brad had prepared. Carlos moved through the kitchen, his weapon ready. The house was quiet, too quiet. No ambient sounds from electronics, no hum of appliances. His instincts screamed of danger, but Santos's hand signal urged him forward. The confident expressions of the Ham twins faltered as their equipment displays went dark. Something's wrong, Dan whispered. We've lost all signals. Abort, Santos commanded, but the word died in his throat as the house plunged into complete darkness. Brad's voice cut through the blackness, calm and deadly. Welcome to my home. The first shot caught Carlos in the chest before he could raise his weapon. Brad had mapped the trajectory angles of his house during his combat career, marking blind spots and kill zones with the precision of a man who treated home defense like battlefield preparation. Dean Ham's attempt to activate their backup systems met with silence. It's dead. Everything's dead. Spread out, Santos ordered, but Brad had already changed positions. Another shot rang out, and Dean collapsed with a grunt of pain. Dan Ham turned to run, only to find himself face to face with Brad. The colonel's eyes held no mercy as he struck, years of close combat training evident in the brutal efficiency of his movements. Santos managed to fire 2 rounds, but Brad had already moved. The SEAL-trained contractor found himself fighting an opponent who knew the terrain intimately and had prepared for this moment. You chose the wrong target. Brad's voice came from behind Santos. The contractor spun, but Brad's strike was faster. Santos hit the ground, his weapon skittering away. Base security arrived to find Brad securing the last of the intruders. He stood in his study, speaking calmly into his phone. Captain Schwartz, we have a situation requiring your immediate attention. The quick reaction force swept the house, their training evident in their precise movements. Brad's expression remained neutral as he provided initial details to the base commander. Sir, a young MP approached. We found this on one of them. He handed Brad a phone showing a text message, target engaged. Proceeding as planned. W. With eyes narrowed slightly, he commanded, secure the prisoners. Full isolation protocol, no outside contact. Outside, Marina received increasingly panicked texts from Warren, team not responding. Something's wrong. Get out now. She stared at her phone, the reality of what she had set in motion crashing down around her. Brad was not merely a soldier. He was a predator who had remained several steps ahead the entire time. Chapter 5. The aftermath. Marina's hands trembled on the steering wheel as she approached her house. Police lights pulsed in the darkness, turning neighboring homes into silent witnesses. Military police vehicles blocked the street, their presence a clear signal that this was no ordinary crime scene. Captain Rachel Schwartz stood at the perimeter, directing the flow of investigators. She spotted Marina and moved to intercept, her expression professionally neutral. Mrs. Brennan, Rachel's voice carried authority. I need you to come with me. Inside, the scene told its own story. Carlos Ramirez lay dead, his weapon unfired. Dean Ham was being loaded onto a stretcher, medical personnel working to stabilize him. Santos and Dan Ham sat handcuffed, their specialized equipment laid out as evidence. Brad stood in his study, giving his statement to detectives. His voice remained steady as he described the home invasion, not a hair out of place despite the violence that had occurred. The first intruder entered at approximately 0217 hours, he stated, his recall precise. Their electronic warfare equipment suggested a military or intelligence background. I defended myself accordingly. Marina felt her legs weaken as she absorbed the scene. Brad's eyes met hers across the room, and in that moment, she knew he had known everything. The affair, the plot, all of it. Dana Best burst through the police line, her face ashen. Marina, I came as soon as I heard. Are you okay? What happened? Before Marina could respond, Brad's voice cut through the chaos. Mrs. Best, the investigators will want to speak with you. I need to speak with you about your role in tonight's events. Dana's confusion was genuine. My role? I don't understand. Your friend used you as an alibi, Rachel explained, her tone professional but cold. While you believed you were covering for an affair, you were actually facilitating a murder attempt. Marina watched as the realization dawned on Dana's face, followed by horror. Oh God, Marina, tell me you didn't. Staff Sergeant Mack approached Brad with a tablet. Sir, we've compiled the surveillance data, the breach attempts, the unauthorized access, the communications. It all ties back to Carey Defense Solutions. Brad nodded once. Start the trace on Warren Carr's accounts. Freeze everything. Marina found her voice. Brad, I can explain. Save it for the investigators. He cut her off, his tone devoid of emotion. Captain Schwartz, ensure Mrs. Brennan is properly processed. Full security protocol. Rachel gripped Marina's arm firmly. Mrs. Brennan, you're being detained under suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder and espionage. The word espionage struck Marina like a physical blow. Espionage? I never. Your lover wasn't just interested in my death, Brad's voice carried across the room. He used you to access classified information that got American soldiers killed in Syria. The implications crashed over Marina as federal agents began arriving. The affair, Warren's questions about Brad's work, the innocent conversations about base operations, it had all been part of a larger, more sinister plan. Dana sat with investigators, her statement revealing the pattern of deception. She said she was meeting friends, shopping, attending spouse support meetings. I never questioned it. I never thought. Melody Allen arrived with Justin, her expression shifting from concern to disgust as she learned the truth. You used our friendship, she accused Marina. You used all of us. Brad watched the scene unfold with cold detachment, his tactical mind already moving to the next phase. The failed assassination attempt wasn't the end, it was merely the beginning. Leverage to unravel a larger conspiracy. Chapter 6. The countermove. Brad assembled his team in a secure conference room at the base. Rachel Schwartz, Arnold Cooper, and civilian intelligence analyst Kristen Mears sat around a table covered in evidence files. Warren Carey isn't running a defense contracting company, Brad began, his voice sharp. He's running an intelligence gathering operation. Marina was just one vector of attack. Kristen pulled up financial records on the main screen. His company's growth makes no sense. They secured contracts they shouldn't have had access to, developed technology they shouldn't have known about. He targeted military families, Rachel added. Created a support group to gather intelligence. Marina wasn't special. She was convenient. Brad's expression hardened. Show me the Syria connection. Cooper brought up surveillance photos. The arms dealers your team encountered had advanced knowledge of your operation. That's why Lieutenant White and his men walked into an ambush. Carey's company sold them the intel, Rachel confirmed. But we need proof that will stand up in court. Brad studied the evidence with cold calculation. We have their assault team. Start with them. In the interrogation room, Santos Stanton maintained his professional demeanor until Brad entered. The colonel pulled up a chair, his movements deliberate. Your team used modified military equipment, Brad stated. Equipment that matches shipments stolen from 3 different bases. the same bases where Carey Defense Solutions handled security upgrades. Santos remained silent. The arms dealers in Syria used similar equipment, Brad continued. Lieutenant White's blood is on your hands. Either you talk, or I ensure you face charges for his murder too. Santos's facade cracked slightly. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Carey's operation goes deeper than you know. Try me. Meanwhile, Rachel coordinated with federal agencies, building a case that would destroy the entire operation. Warren's entire network of anonymous tips reached journalists, directing them toward financial irregularities and suspicious contracts. Marina sat in her cell, the reality of her situation sinking in. Her attorney, provided by Warren, had stopped answering calls, her assets were frozen, her friends had abandoned her, and the evidence against her mounted. Brad's revenge was neither swift nor violent. It was methodical and absolute. Each day brought new revelations, new arrests, and new betrayals. Warren's carefully constructed empire began crumbling under the weight of federal investigations. Melody Allen provided recordings of conversations from spousal support group meetings, revealing how Warren had manipulated vulnerable families for information. Dana Best's testimony outlined the pattern of deception that had allowed Marina to participate in the murder plot. Santos, facing multiple life sentences, finally broke. His confession implicated Warren in arms deals across 3 continents. The Ham twins, offered immunity, revealed the technical details of their operation, including evidence that linked directly to the Syria ambush. Brad reviewed each piece of evidence with the same intensity he brought to combat operations. This was not merely about punishing Marina's betrayal. It was about dismantling a network that had cost American lives. Rachel watched her commander with a mixture of respect and concern. Sir, the prosecutor's office wants to know if you'll testify against Marina. Brad's response was cold. Schedule it. She chose her side. The colonel's reputation for tactical brilliance took on new meaning as his counteroffensive unfolded. Warren's attempts to destroy evidence were thwarted by Cooper's cyber team. His emergency protocols were compromised before he could activate them. Marina, watching her world collapse from her cell, finally understood the full scope of her husband's capabilities. She had conspired with Warren, thinking Brad. She had merely perceived him as a soldier, never grasping the truth. She was confronting a strategic mastermind who regarded betrayal as an enemy operation to be ruthlessly crushed. The evidence accumulated, witnesses came forward, and the conspiracy unraveled. Brad Brennan, whom Marina had dismissed as emotionally distant, revealed himself to be a calculating predator, transforming her betrayal into a weapon against her fellow conspirators. Warren's empire crumbled piece by piece, each revelation exposing deeper layers of corruption. The man who had seduced Marina with understanding smiles and gentle words was unmasked as a traitor who had traded American lives for profit. Brad's revenge was not merely complete, it was devastating in its thoroughness. He did not simply dismantle the murder plot. He systematically took apart the entire criminal enterprise that had enabled it. His response to treachery stood as a testament to the ruthless efficiency that had forged his reputation as a legendary Marine commander. Chapter 7. Cornered Animals. Warren Carey nursed his gin and tonic at the bar of the Monte Carlo Bay Hotel, his confidence buoyed by offshore accounts and a new identity. The documents identifying him as Alexander Wright lay securely in his suite upstairs, alongside 3 different passports and access codes to cryptocurrency wallets. Another drink, sir? The bartender inquired. Mullen, 25, neat, a deep voice answered. Warren's blood ran cold as Nathaniel Hogan settled onto the stool beside him. The former Force Recon Marine's muscular frame blocked Warren's path to the exit. You're a long way from Virginia, Hogan, he said, his tone deceptively conversational. Funny coincidence, running into you here. Warren's hand crept toward his phone. Do I know you? No, but I knew Lieutenant Peter White. We served together. Hogan's eyes held the cold focus of a predator. So did Holly. Warren turned to find Holly White seated at a table behind him. Her expensive dress and poised demeanor presented the image of just another wealthy tourist, but her eyes mirrored the same merciless focus as her companion. The White family possesses substantial resources, Holly stated as she approached the bar. Did you truly believe we would fail to uncover your financial trail? The very same accounts utilized to pay Santos and his team? Warren let out a forced laugh. I have no idea what you are referring to. I am here strictly on business. The business of trading military intelligence to arms dealers, Hogan interjected sharply. The same dealers responsible for the deaths of Peter's team in Syria. Warren's phone buzzed with an incoming message from his contact at the bank. Accounts frozen. Federal seizure order. Your cryptocurrency wallets have been seized as well, Holly added, observing the shift in his expression. Colonel Brennan's team is exceptionally thorough. Warren made a sudden dash for the door, but Hogan's hand clamped firmly onto his shoulder. Running only worsens your situation. Trust me on that. In Virginia, Marina Brennan sat within her cell, her gaze fixed upon the most recent letter from yet another law firm declining to represent her. The phrases blurred together. Unable to take your case at this time. Conflict of interest. Regret to inform you. Visitor, the guard announced. Marina lifted her eyes to find Rachel Schwartz standing at the door of her cell. The captain's presence exuded authority, even attired in civilian clothing. Have you come to gloat? Marina inquired. To warn you, Rachel responded. Warren's associates are growing anxious. They believe you possess too much knowledge. Marina released a bitter laugh. I know nothing. I was merely the foolish wife, the one who attended classified briefings as a spouse, who had access to Brad's home office, who spent months transmitting information to a foreign intelligence asset. Rachel's voice sliced through the air like steel. You know more than you realize, and that renders you a threat to them. Marina's composure fractured. What am I to do? No attorney will take my case. My accounts are frozen. Brad is offering you a deal, Rachel stated, placing a document on the steel desk. Full cooperation in exchange for protection. The choice is yours. At the FBI field office, Dana Best provided another statement. The spouse support group meetings, Warren inquired about deployment schedules, base security protocols. It seemed as though he had been assisting families in their preparations, and Marina's involvement prompted the agent to reveal that she had used them all. Dana wiped tears from her eyes. She had exploited their friendships to establish an alibi. I thought I was helping her conceal an affair, not this. Not any of this. Brad watched the interview through the one-way glass, his expression unreadable. Behind him, Kristen Mears analyzed data on her laptop. Sir, she called out, we've found the connection. Warren's company wasn't just selling intelligence. They were providing targeting data to the arms dealers in Syria. The ambush that killed Lieutenant White, they knew exactly where to strike. Brad's jaw tightened. Give it to Holly. She'll know what to do with it. Sir, Kristen hesitated. What about Marina's protection request? Process it, Brad ordered. She's more valuable alive to testify than dead with her secrets. In Monaco, Warren found himself trapped between Hogan's implacable presence and Holly White's cold determination. His phone buzzed with alerts as his carefully constructed escape routes collapsed one by one. Colonel Brennan sends his regards, Holly said, sliding a phone across the bar. He'd like to talk. Warren stared at the device, remembering how easy it had been to manipulate Marina, to exploit her loneliness and resentment. He had underestimated her husband, seeing only a distant military commander instead of the tactical genius who now held all the pieces. The phone rang. Warren picked it up with trembling fingers. Mr. Carver, Brad's voice carried the same tone he used in combat. Let's discuss your terms of surrender. Chapter 8. The final moves. Brad Brennan coordinated the endgame from his command center at Quantico. Screens displayed real-time feeds from Monaco, federal task force positions, and surveillance on Warren's remaining associates. Target Alpha is contained, Hogan reported from Monaco. Holly's resources have locked down his escape routes. Interpol teams are in position, Rachel added, marking locations on the main display. Warren's network is exposed. We are advancing against his partners in Dubai, Singapore, and Zurich. Brad studied the intelligence with predatory focus. The location of the Syrian arms dealer, leadership confirmed in Damascus. Kristen reported the intelligence Warren sold them. We traced it back to their command center. Excellent. Brad's lips curved slightly. Send the coordinates to our assets in the region. They've waited long enough for payback. Marina's deal with federal prosecutors came with strict conditions. She sat in a secure room, surrounded by investigators, as she detailed Warren's operation. The spouse support group was his recruiting ground, she explained. He targeted women like me, wives of high-ranking officers, especially those with access to classified information. He made us feel understood, valued. In the information gathering, an agent prompted. It started small, questions about deployment schedules, base security upgrades. He said it helped his company design better systems. Marina's voice cracked. I never realized, never wanted to see what he was really doing. Brad watched the interview feed, his expression hardening. The woman he had married, who had shared his bed and his home, had helped enemies target American soldiers. The magnitude of her betrayal went beyond their marriage. Sir, Rachel approached with new intelligence. Warren's trying to bargain. Says he has classified data we haven't found yet. He's lying, Brad replied. Cooper's team stripped his servers clean weeks ago. Let him think he has leverage. It'll make the fall harder. In Monaco, Warren sat in a secure room as Interpol agents cataloged his crimes. His attempt to flee had been thwarted by Brad's meticulous planning. Even his emergency protocols had been compromised. Your company sold targeting data to arms dealers, Polly White stated, laying out photographs. These men died because of intelligence you provided. American soldiers. My husband. Warren's arrogance crumbled under her relentless presentation of evidence. I can help you. We have already recovered everything. Hogan, cut to Colonel Brennan. He has been 3 steps ahead since the night you attempted to kill him. Brad's voice resonated through the room's speakers. Did you truly believe I would not investigate my wife's lover, Mr. Carey? That I would fail to notice the pattern of security breaches coinciding with your company's contracts? Warren slumped in his chair. What do you want? The same thing you wanted, everything. Brad's tone remained clinical. Your networks, your contacts, your entire operation. Consider it payment for targeting my men. The next 24 hours witnessed Warren's empire dismantled piece by piece. Federal agents raided offices across 3 continents. Offshore accounts were frozen, shell companies exposed, and corrupt officials arrested. In Damascus, the arms dealer who had orchestrated Lieutenant White's death discovered the true cost of underestimating Colonel Brad Brennan. Special operations teams, armed with intelligence extracted from Warren's servers, struck with precision. Marina watched news reports of Warren's arrest from her cell. The man who had seduced her with understanding smiles and gentle touches was revealed as a traitor, one who had used military wives to gather intelligence that led to the deaths of American soldiers. He never cared about any of us, she told Rachel during a debriefing. We were merely assets to be exploited, like you exploited your position as Brad's wife. Rachel's question cut deep. Marina had no answer. Chapter N. Justice served. The military tribunal convened with brutal efficiency. Brad's testimony, supported by Rachel's investigation and mountains of evidence, exposed the full scope of Warren's operation. The defendant did not merely steal classified information, Brad declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the courtroom. He created a systematic program to exploit military families, turning spouses into unwitting intelligence assets. Warren sat in the defendant's chair, stripped of his charisma and confidence. His attempts to bargain with supposedly concealed intelligence had backfired when Brad's team revealed they had already secured and sealed those secrets. Multiple life sentences, the judge announced, were to be served consecutively with no possibility of parole. Marina's own sentencing came later. Her cooperation had helped expose the network, but Brad's influence ensured her punishment reflected the severity of her crimes. 20 years, the federal judge declared. The defendant's assistance in dismantling this conspiracy is noted, but the betrayal of national security cannot go unpunished. 1 year later, Brad stood in his Montana command center, overseeing the training facility he had built from the ashes of betrayal. The complex specialized in preparing military families for the modern battlefield of information warfare. Colonel Holly White entered, now serving as the facility's family support coordinator. The new protocols you implemented have already identified 3 attempted infiltrations of military spouse networks, she reported. Brad nodded. The enemy adapts, so must we. Rachel, heading the intelligence training division, brought up surveillance feeds. Sir, Evan Max's tactical team has completed another successful response drill. The lessons from that night are being put to good use. The facility represented Brad's evolution from warrior to guardian. He had transformed personal betrayal into institutional reform, using Marina and Warren's conspiracy as a template for defending against future threats. A knock at his office door revealed Justin and Melody Allen, their newborn son, Peter, cradled in Melody's arms. The baby, named for the fallen lieutenant, represented hope for a stronger, more resilient military community. "Sir," Justin reported, "the new family security briefing program is ready for implementation across all bases." Brad studied the child, seeing in him the future they were fighting to protect. The price of his wife's betrayal had been high, but the lessons learned were forging a more secure tomorrow. He would shield countless others from similar threats. "Begin the rollout," he ordered. "No other family should pay the price that we did." The facility's training continued day and night, preparing the next generation of military families for the invisible wars fought with information and trust. Brad Brennan, the warrior who had emerged stronger from betrayal, stood guard against those who would exploit the defenders of freedom. The sun set over the Montana mountains as Brad reviewed the day's reports. Marina served her sentence in federal prison, Warren rotted in maximum security, and the arms dealers who killed Lieutenant White were dead or captured. His revenge was complete, but his mission continued. He had learned that modern battles weren't fought only with weapons, but with loyalty, truth, and the strength to stand guard against those who would turn love into a weapon. The betrayal that had sought to destroy him had instead forged him into something more, a protector who understood that the greatest threats often came wrapped in smiles and gentle words. The facility's alarms tested silently, its security systems scanning for threats both seen and unseen. Brad Brennan, the commander who had turned personal pain into institutional strength, continued his watch. The price of betrayal had been paid in full, but the lessons would protect generations to come. Epilogue. A decade later, the Guardian's watch. Colonel Brad Brennan, now Brigadier General, stood at the observation deck of the Montana Security Institute, watching teams of military personnel and their families participate in advanced security drills. At 52, his steel-gray eyes retained their predatory focus, and his reputation had grown into near-legendary status within military circles. General Captain Saratan, his new intelligence officer, approached with a tablet. "The latest security assessment from our global network." Brad reviewed the data with practiced efficiency. The institute had expanded into 4 across numerous international locations, each dedicated to safeguarding military families from exploitation and infiltration. What had originated as his personal response to betrayal had matured into a comprehensive global security initiative. "How many attempts this quarter?" he inquired. 17 identified infiltration operations targeting military spouses, Sarah reported. All were neutralized before they could establish networks. The war and carry protocols continue to prove effective. Brad's lips tightened at the mention of Warren Carey, who remained in maximum security confinement, his empire dismantled, his legacy now serving as a case study in how foreign operatives exploit vulnerabilities within military families. Updates on the others? Sarah accessed the personnel files. Rachel Schwartz now leads our European division. The NATO command center she established in Brussels, ironic, considering, has already prevented 3 major intelligence breaches this year alone. Brad nodded. Rachel had internalized the lessons from Marina's betrayal, developing them into a sophisticated counterintelligence program. Her team specialized in identifying potential threats before they could target military families. Evan Mack continues to head tactical operations. His team intercepted a Chinese attempt to replicate Warren's spouse exploitation strategy last month. "They're adapting our methods, sir, but we're staying ahead." Through the observation window, Brad watched Holly White conducting a briefing for newly assigned military families. Peter White would have been proud. His widow had transformed grief into purpose, building the Institute's family support program into a model now adopted by armed forces worldwide. Such was the price of redemption. At the Federal Correctional Institution in Waseca, Minnesota, a woman carried herself with composure despite 15 years of incarceration. Marina Brennan, now 50, had earned early release through continued cooperation and model behavior. "Your belongings, Mrs. Brennan," the processing officer said, handing her a small box. After 15 years of permitted possessions, Marina held her release papers, the words blurring before her eyes. A decade and a half of reflection had stripped away her justifications, leaving only the harsh reality of her choices. "Someone's here to meet you," the officer noted. Outside, Dana Best waited by her car. The years had added silver to her hair, but her expression held the same warmth that had once made her Marina's closest friend. "The support group approved your application," Dana said as they drove. "You'll be working with military spouses, teaching them how to recognize manipulation tactics." Marina's hands trembled in her lap. "They trust me with that?" "After everything. Brad approved it personally," Dana revealed. "He said your experience makes you uniquely qualified to spot the warning signs." The program operated under strict supervision, using Marina's story as a cautionary tale. She spoke to military spouses about how Warren had exploited her vulnerabilities, how seemingly innocent questions could feed enemy intelligence operations. "Your ex-husband's institute," she asked Dana during a break between sessions. "How big has it grown?" "Global now. Brad turned your betrayal into a shield for others." Dana's voice held no accusation, just statement of fact. "The protocols they developed after exposing Warren's operation are standard training for military families worldwide." The legacy of vigilance. The Montana Security Institute's annual conference drew military leaders from across the globe. Brad surveyed the assembled crowd from the podium, his presence commanding total attention. 10 years ago, a defense contractor named Warren Carey exploited our greatest vulnerability, the trust between military families, he began. He turned spouses into unwitting intelligence assets, using their loneliness and frustration to gather classified information that got American soldiers killed. The audience sat in rapt attention, many knowing the story well. The personal cost behind his words resonated today as we confront sophisticated attempts to replicate his methods. Foreign operators are targeting military families, seeking to transform love into a weapon. The Institute exists to ensure they fail. In the front row, Justin Allen, now a colonel himself, sat with his wife Melody and their son Peter, now a West Point cadet. They represented the new generation of military families, trained, vigilant, and prepared for the invisible wars fought with information and trust. Rachel Schwartz, visiting from Brussels, presented the latest intelligence. Attempted infiltrations have dropped 60% since implementing the Institute's protocols. The enemy adapts, but we adapt faster. Later, in Brad's office, Holly White shared updates on the family support program. Marina's testimonials are making an impact. The spouses connect with her story and understand how easily it can happen. Brad's expression remained neutral at his ex-wife's name. "She's serving her purpose," he remarked. "She's helped prevent 3 infiltration attempts this year," Holly noted. She spotted the signs she missed in her own case. "Redemption comes at a price," Brad replied. "She's paying hers by protecting others from her mistakes." The Watchers, led by Krista Myers, now the Institute's chief analyst, maintained surveillance on key players from the Warren-Carey conspiracy. Her quarterly reports landed on Brad's desk. "Warren shows no signs of reform," she reported. "He still attempts to manipulate other inmates, but his psychological profile is flagged. No one trusts him." The Ham twins, Dean died in prison last year, while Dan serves as a technical consultant for cybersecurity firms under strict monitoring. Santos Stanton works with law enforcement, helping identify private military contractors gone rogue. Brad reviewed the files. The conspiracy that had nearly killed him had spawned an entire field of counterintelligence focused on protecting military families. "Sir," Kristen hesitated, Marina's post-release. "Monitoring confirms consistent compliance. She has evolved into an effective instrument in preventing similar infiltrations." Instrument being the operative term, Brad's tone remained strictly professional. "Continue surveillance." The next generation, Peter Allen Jr., named in honor of the fallen lieutenant, stood at attention in Brad's office. At 18, he carried himself with the same unwavering dedication that had defined his namesake. "The Institute's security program at West Point," the cadet began. "I want to help expand it." Brad studied the young man, who embodied all that the Institute strived to protect. "Your father tells me you've been studying the Warren KY case." "Yes, sir. Understanding how he exploited military families helps us prevent it from happening again." "And Marina's role in it." Peter's jaw tightened. "A cautionary tale, sir." How personal vulnerabilities can be turned against us. Brad nodded in approval. The next generation understood the lessons, paid for in blood and betrayal. The Guardians, the Institute's global security network, operated around the clock, monitoring threats to military families worldwide. Brad's vision had expanded well beyond personal vengeance, forging a shield against those who would exploit the defenders of freedom. Rachel's European division had become a model for NATO allies. "We've identified a pattern in Russian intelligence operations," she reported during a secure video conference. "They're now targeting diplomatic families, using Warren's methods." "Adapt the protocols," Brad ordered. "Expand the protection network." Evans' tactical teams ran continuous drills, preparing for evolving threats. The lessons from that night in Virginia had been codified into standard operating procedures for military family protection. Holly White's family support program had expanded to include psychological screening and support services. "We are not just preventing infiltration," she explained to new recruits. "We are strengthening the family units that support our warriors." The price of Marina's small apartment near the support center reflected her modified purpose. Photographs of the military families she had helped protect lined one wall, serving as reminders of the redemption she had earned through service. "Tell us how it began," a young military wife asked during a session. "How did you miss the signs?" Marina's response carried the weight of 15 years of reflection. "He offered understanding when I felt alone. He turned my resentment into a weapon. Every piece of information I shared put American lives at risk, and I was too blind to see it." Her testimony served as both warning and weapon against those who would replicate Warren's methods. The pain in her voice reached military spouses in ways that clinical training never could. The Watcher's legacy. Brad's office in the Institute's main tower offered views of the training grounds where new generations of military families learned to protect themselves. Photos on his walls traced the facility's growth, from a response to personal betrayal into a global security network. The latest intelligence report showed attempted infiltrations at military bases worldwide. Each failed attempt validated the protocols born from his own experience, turning betrayal into a shield for others. "Sir," Saran entered with urgent news. "We've identified a new operation targeting Air Force families using Warren's methods, but more sophisticated." Brad's expression hardened with familiar focus. The enemy had adapted, but so had they. The price of his wife's betrayal had purchased lessons that now protected thousands. "Deploy the countermeasures," he ordered. "Alert Rachel's team in Europe. I want this network exposed and neutralized." The Institute's response machinery engaged across the globe. Teams moved to protect military families from those who would turn love into a weapon. The Future Guard, the Montana facility's lights burned through the night as teams monitored global threats. Brad stood at his window, watching the next generation of defenders train below. Under the guidance of Peter Allen Jr., the cadet group advanced through intricate security drills, his every motion reflecting the steadfast commitment that had defined his father and namesake. The Institute had long since transcended its origins in vengeance, maturing into an enduring bastion of safeguarding. Holly approached, bearing the day's concluding updates. "A decade now, Brad. We've thwarted more infiltration attempts than we can tally. The adversary persists in their efforts," he remarked. "And we persist in repelling them," Holly replied, her tone imbued with unmistakable pride. Marina's latest cohort of military spouses identified 3 potential infiltrators just this month. "The system is effective." Brad gave a measured nod, his expression resolute. The cost of treachery had been steep, yet the returns, preserved lives and shielded families, affirmed its necessity. The Institute stood as his definitive response to those who sought to prey upon military households. Forged in the crucible of Marina's deceit and Warren's conspiracy, its lessons had crystallized into an unyielding shield for generations yet to come. As dusk settled across the Montana landscape, the Institute's security arrays maintained their ceaseless vigil. Brad Brennan, the warrior who had transmuted personal anguish into institutional fortitude, stood watch alongside them. The foe would undoubtedly persist, refining tactics, probing for fresh vulnerabilities. Yet they would discover, as Warren had, that betrayal exacts a toll, and Brad had made certain that price served to secure the future. A glow against the encroaching night, the Institute's lights shone as beacons of resolve, its mission unequivocal. No other military family would endure the sacrifices his had borne. The inheritance of betrayal had been reforged into a fortress of preservation, standing sentinel over those who defend freedom. In his office, Brad surveyed the following day's training regimen. The world shifts, dangers adapt, but the purpose endures. He had alchemized retribution into salvation, personal suffering into worldwide guardianship. The debt of betrayal had been settled in full. Its wisdom would protect generations yet unborn. Here our narrative draws to a close. We welcome your reflections in the comments below. Thank you for your time and engagement. If you have enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video that you see on the screen, and I will see you there.